Hello guys, today we are going to talk about the father of modern English literature, Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer was a major late medieval writer. Chaucer lived at the time when lots of turmoils and transformations were happening in England and Europe. There was the 100 Years' War with France, between France and England. And this was the time of Black Death. The Bubonic plague ravaged the entire Europe and came to England in 1348. This led to lots of social problems. Thousands of people died and peasants' revolt broke out. The peasants wanted a better life, better living conditions. They wanted money, wages. King Richard II crushed the peasants' revolts. This was during the time of Chaucer. But it indeed gave some new importance to the ordinary people. At the time Chaucer lived, French and Latin were the important languages. English was not a literary language at all. French was the language of the aristocracy. Latin was the language of the episcopacy or the clergy. A lot of poetry was written in French, prose in Latin, nothing in English. Chaucer wrote in English. Chaucer lived at a time when vernacular literatures were on the rise. Some of his contemporaries also wrote in English. Langland wrote The Vision of Piers the Plowman. Gower wrote Confessio Amantis. John Wycliffe translated the Bible into English. This was the beginning of the Renaissance. Chaucer was born in 1340 as the son of a vintner or wine merchant. And he died in 1400 of unknown causes. Chaucer was a man who started small but he grew big. He studied law, became a diplomat, a very important figure in the court he was. And he married Philippa Roe, who was the sister of John of Gaunt's wife. John of Gaunt was the most powerful nobleman in England at that time. And John of Gaunt was Chaucer's patron. Chaucer even brought John of Gaunt into one of his works, the Book of the Duchess. And Chaucer wrote in the most important dialect of the time, East Midland dialect. Now, let us talk about Chaucer's works. Chaucer's works can be divided into three phases. Initially, he was influenced by French. That is the French phase. Then he was influenced by Italian. And then he was starting to write in English. You can say French phase, Italian phase and English phase, or French phase, middle phase and Italian phase. Both are correct. Chaucer lived in the time of three kings and he was involved in political affairs. He traveled abroad. He was like the head of the PWD department. He was the head of the king's works. All these experiences are seen in his works. At the beginning of his career, he must have translated the famous dream allegory, Romaunt de la Rose. There were two major genres in Middle English literature, actually in medieval European literature. The dream allegory and the chivalric romance. Romaunt de la Rose is a French dream allegory that Chaucer translated as Romaunt of the Rose. In modern English, it is called Romance of the Rose. And Chaucer's early dream allegory, other than Romaunt de la Rose, his original dream allegory is the Book of the Duchess. Chaucer is seeing a black knight who is perhaps John of Gaunt, and he is mourning for the death of his wife Blanche. The Book of the Duchess is also called the Dream of Chaucer. Obviously, being an early work, this came in the French phase. Then he is supposed to have written a parody of Divine Comedy, that is the House of Fame. Chaucer is traveling. He goes to a temple of glass. From there he gets to a desert. He is dropped by an eagle onto a tower of ice. From there he goes to the House of Fame. Fame is a woman of varying heights, many eyes, many tongues. What does that mean? It means don't trust fame. Fame will say different things at different times. Fame is not the same for everyone every time. And from there he goes to a house made of sticks. That means it will fall at any time. That is the house of rumor. So this is a very important text. After Chaucer's time, there were some Chaucerian writers who imitated Chaucer, like John Lydgate. The House of Fame was a text that was imitated by Lydgate. He wrote the Temple of Glass. Even our Alexander Pope wrote a poem modeled on House of Fame. It is called Temple of Fame. And after House of Fame, Chaucer wrote the Parliament of Fowls. The Parliament of Fowls was first written, the first work to be written in the 7-lined Chaucerian stanza. Have you heard of that? Chaucerian stanza was also called by another name. You might know that. It is Rhyme Royal. Bolo, who wrote Chaucerian stanza so that it came to be called Rhyme Royal? James the First of Scotland, King. That is why Rhyme Royal. James the First wrote King is Square or King's Book. Parliament of Fowls is set on St. Valentine's Day. Birds are choosing their partners or mates. And the focus is on 3 male eagles who all want the same female eagle. Amazing story. And after Parliament of Fowls, Chaucer wrote translation of Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy. We know that already. You have heard it already. King Alfred also translated it. Did you know Boethius was in prison awaiting execution when he wrote Consolation of Philosophy? Consolation is a genre in itself. And after this he wrote Troilus and Criseyde. Chaucer wrote. Troilus and Criseyde, mind you, we can't accept that book. It's about the fickle woman Criseyde. Story from Trojan War. Criseyde is cheating Troilus. It is a very negative picture of a woman. Chaucer is giving a very negative picture of Criseyde's love. She's very fickle and she's not loyal. I think it's sexist. But don't worry, Chaucer himself retracted this view of women and wrote a palinode. A palinode is a work where an author retracts his former ideas. The palinode, where he presented women as good, is the legend of good women. 10 stories of wonderful, virtuous women who are all cheated by wicked men. This legend of good women is famous because Chaucer introduced something there. Tell me what it is. Post in the comments. Legend of good women introduced what? Heroic couplet or the decasyllabic couplet. You know, couplet means 2 lines. Decasyllabic means 10 syllables divided into iambs. Unstressed, stressed. That is heroic couplet. Chaucer introduced it. And then came Chaucer's most important work, the Canterbury Tales. That is the work that established realism, so to say. Many Renaissance features are there in Canterbury Tales. Brilliant book showing deep characterization of various pilgrims from different walks of life. They're all getting together at a tavern or an inn, and all of them, along with the innkeeper Harry Bailey, going to Canterbury to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. Wow, journey, pilgrimage, people from different walks of life, all of them described in a realistic manner. It is a very modern text, you know. And as you know, Chaucer himself is a character there. So many characters. 29 pilgrims plus Chaucer plus Harry Bailey, innkeeper. It is Harry Bailey who tells everybody, so now guys, this is a long way we have to go. So everybody, to make the way shorter, tell 2 tales on the way to Canterbury, 2 tales on the way back, altogether 120 tales. I am not going to tell any tale. This is the plan. But it's an incomplete work. Only 24 stories are told. And 23 pilgrims tell stories. Obviously, one man tells 2. That is why 24 stories. Who is that? Chaucer. It's a funny situation. Chaucer starts telling a funny, frolicking tale of Sir Thopas. And Harry Bailey says, stop it, what kind of tale is this? Tell a serious tale. And Chaucer tells a prose tale. Tale of Milibeus. And there are only 2 prose tales actually. This is one. The other is the Parson's tale, which is incidentally the last tale. The first tale is Knight's tale. You know, knight is there along with it. Knight means the lowest of the nobility. Knights were associated with chivalry, courtly romance. Chivalry means duty, discipline of life, devotion to religion and nation, politeness to women. The knights always save damsels in distress. Our knight is also chivalrous. He has come with his son Squire and a yeoman. All these characters are described in so much detail. You should read. You know, these days in the internet, you get Canterbury Tales text with paraphrase. It's easy to understand. And while you're listening to the video, you can comment in the comment section, the features of these characters. Will you do that? My lecturing and spoon feeding is no good. You have to interact with me. There are 100 ways in which you can interact with me, even in a video, even in a recorded video. I'm there talking to you. And you can interact with me. This is the technique that Chaucer also uses in his text. It is not live. He wrote it hundreds of years ago. But it is like this text is so interactive, you know. It's like he's talking to us. The reader is given a role. It's a very brilliant text. Almost writerly text, to use Roland Barthes' term. Chaucer was a master of storytelling. He knew how to tell a story engagingly. The character Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales is pretending to be very naive and simple. He doesn't understand people's cunning, and that creates a lot of humor and subtle satire. Humor and satire is there. Realistic portrayal of characters using the theory of physiognomy. Physiognomy means what? Appearance determines character. How you appear, the shape of your body, the clothes you wear, all this show your character. Array, this is cultural studies, almost, body studies. It also led to stereotyping. So Chaucer is a brilliant writer. Really. Many critics have talked about Chaucer after this. And you can post in comment section that also. Who said Chaucer is a rough diamond that should be polished? He shines. Who said Chaucer is the father of English literature? You know, if you want to know British literature and Chaucer, I will give you some suggestions for reading. Our own encyclopedia in 3 volumes on British literature will give you a very good detailed introduction to all these writers and texts. You can use it if you want. This encyclopedia we have made using a lot of important other books, so many books. And you can read those books also, like David Duchess or Lewis and Kazamian. There are brilliant books brought out by Cambridge and Routledge. So you should have a library, you should use the right resources. An easy solution is encyclopedia, but reading the text in original, collecting your own books and reading is of course the best. Read like that. These characters you should read in Chaucer's language. Let us talk about a few of them. Who is gat-toothed? She is deaf in one ear, obviously, wife of Bath. Who is as fresh as the month of May? He is a young man, lusty, he loves jousting. It is the Squire. Who is a vulgar man, very stout, very strong, because he is peasantry. Peasants are depicted as very physical people and mostly corrupt. Miller plays the bagpipe. The ecclesias are also corrupted because this was the age of Reformation. Corrupt clergy had to be reformed. The most brilliant ecclesiast is Pardoner, the character Pardoner. Friar is also there. Summoner is there. Clerk of Oxford is there. Prioress is there. Monk is there. Most of them, except for the virtuous Parson, are corrupted in some ways. Even the clerk is hypocritical. He is so much studious that he does not even feed his horse. Did you understand? The knight is virtuous, chivalrous knight. The women, there are 3 estates for women: virgin, wife and widow. All 3 of them are in Wife of Bath. So this is a book that shows a lot of social commentary. After writing Canterbury Tales, Chaucer died in about 1400. And because he was a very influential man at that time, he was buried in Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. That is where a lot of later poets were also buried. So that is about Geoffrey Chaucer. I hope you will read extra, and we will talk about Chaucer's contemporaries in the next video. Bye bye, dear friends.